Saturday, night time, the 21st of Keythorn, in the year 1489, Dale Reckoning. Dear Journal, let me entail what happened to us today. For much has happened, and on the morrow, much more awaits the four of us. It's official. We're now a party of adventurers, just like the ones you meet in the inns and taverns of the Sword Coast, always eager to share their stories of swords and sorcery, loot and plunder. This morning we made our way to the Saltmarsh Council meeting. Let me tell you, dear Journal, this was a most peculiar council meeting. Nothing like I was accustomed to from Murderlin or the Circle of the Moon Druids. There was no ceremony or prayers. There was no shaman or witch doctor or any one person leading the ceremony. It was just a bunch of people arguing and bickering across a breakfast table. When we asked to participate, we were heralded in. That was the only bit of ceremoniousness to the entire event. While OV asked we were to be called Vandman and Party, I told the old butler we shall be known as Saviours of the Queen's Providence, which I thought to have more flair to it. I will not make excuses, dear Journal, but my noggin has little patience for human politics, and though it was greatly debated and with heat and passion, I understood very little of it. From what I could infer, the townspeople are basically split into two groups, the Loyalists and the Traditionalists. The former accept the new crown and the latter not so much, remembering how during war times Saltmarsh was left to fend for itself. Every noteworthy issue with the town or its surrounding now has at least two contradicting viewpoints with regards to how it should be dealt with. Much was told to us, and there seems to be enough work for a group of adventurers to keep busy for a while here. Of all that was mentioned, we decided to help out Sheriff Leandor with investigating an old abandoned house on the outskirts of town, which is presumably haunted. The council itself was not sure whether this was a real threat or some drunken gossip ran wild, but since the local sheriff can't spare constables for this kind of job, we agreed to take the mission. Leaving the councilmen to bicker and argue, we set out towards the abandoned house. It wasn't a long way, a couple of hours' march at a steady pace. On the way there, OV told us he used to play around that house back when he was a kid. Just imagining OV as a child brimming with optimism, without the bags under the eyes, the glassy gaze and other markers of the inebriated adult he became, made me smile. We reached the premises and decided to have Ziggy, as a gecko again, search the house for us and report back. During that time, I was using Ziggy's senses to report what I see and hear to the rest of the party, and they made sure my body remained safe. I gave them all a batch of Amanita muscaria, one of the illuminating mushrooms I knew the tall races often find thrilling and inspiring. Ziggy explored the first and second floors of the house, which seemed abandoned and derelict, with no signs of life, or unlife for that matter. The basement, however, was a different story. Down the stairs there was a dead body of a human warrior clad in mail, and one metal door on the south wall, fitted to the doorframe in such a manner that offered no crack for Ziggy to slip through. Whatever lies beyond this door, we would have to find on our own. I snapped back out of my trance and reported as much to the rest of the group. By that time, the sun was already setting again, and we decided to scout the area for a good campsite, thinking maybe it's best not to camp outside an abandoned house rumoured to be haunted. That was our first mistake. Our second one was walking into tall grass without carefully looking down. One moment, we were taking a nice evening stroll in the grassy hills by the cliff, and in a blink of an eye, we were fighting for our lives. It started with a sharp cry of pain from Anathia. I turned around just in time to see her slender Aasimar physique being yanked down, all but disappearing in the tall yellow grass. The two men were slower to react than me, so I used a druidic incantation to part the grass. To my astonishment, it wouldn't budge, like some equal divine force was holding it in place. Furling my brow and focusing on my intent, I willed the grass to do my bidding and bow down, and then we could all see Anathia pinned to the ground, a nasty purplish black root coiled around her leg, extracting venomous barbs and vines into her flesh as she cried in pain. Her leg was torn from heel to thigh, and I could see the white of bone showing where the twisting root did its worst. I will not lie, dear journal. seeing the strength of that vine and its autonomous wickedness. I panicked a bit and ran my way up a nearby tree, thanking Saluna for the magical moccasins of spiderness I received from my parents before leaving Murderlin. From my vantage point, I could see this root or vine or whatever it was, stretched out and writhed for about 15 feet. And before my very eyes, it stretched out more tendrils and vines towards Guppy and OV. I dispatched a druidic healing word, which fixed some of the damage to Anathea's leg, but not all of it. Catching her breath, the Aasimar muttered some arcane word and the entire world went white for a brief moment, as if lightning shot from her hand. With a big explosive cracking sound, black wooden splinters flew everywhere, and some black resin was dripping from the malignant root, as if it was its blood. But the root did not die. It just began to spasm more wildly and only hardened its twist on Anathea's leg. I could see her face wince in agony again. By that time, Guppy and OV were running to her aid. Guppy was chopping big chunks off of that vine, while OV graced us with divine blessing to make our weapons and spells strike true. Recalling the druidic incantation of fairy firefly glow, I marked the vine and its surrounding. The magical glow would make it easier to strike for my comrades. Guppy used this to his advantage immediately. Momentarily, the vine twisted away from Guppy, dodging his axe. The barbarian reacted by raising his offhand, his fingers morphing to tentacles, like that of an octopus, as they shot away to grab the vine and untwist it from Anathea's leg. While that was happening, I hurled Ziggy, still a small gecko, towards the enemy. Ziggy ran across the grass, climbing the malignant sentient vine, and as it climbed, I spoke the words to transfigure his shape once more. Crocodile teeth sank into the black roots, and more creaking of wood could be heard, as if the vine screamed in pain. Guppy, sweat beads showing on his brow, brought his axe down mercilessly, again and again. The vine was twitching and writhing, springing new sprigs of poisonous barbs aimed at the brave barbarian. But as they were now lit with a phosphorus glow thanks to my earlier spell, Guppy deftly dealt with each one before it could grasp him, suffering only minor scratches to his big, sinewy forearms. The tide was turned. We were weakening it, that was certain. But still the corrupted plant twisted and writhed. Anathea tried to stand on her torn foot and winced in pain. I threw another healing word at her, but it seemed to do very little. OV noticed her too, and clasping the silvery symbol of Talos that always hung around his neck, he began muttering ancient words that came as music to my ears, as I recognized the healing spell they were articulating. A blue shine passed from the cleric to Anathea's leg, and her bones were set back into place as the wounds in her flesh closed before our very eyes. A look of soothing regeneration came about her face. With a second wind, the majestic Aasimar raised her hand to the sky while quietly mouthing a mantra. A crackling javelin made of pure light appeared in her open palm. She raised her other arm and grasped the weapon with both hands, and with one fell swoop, brought it down upon the evil glowing vine. Guppy's axe on one end, Ziggy's crocodile maw on the other, and now Anathea's bolt piercing its middle, the malignant root gave one last spasm, froze for a second, and then turned to ash which dispersed in the evening wind. Victory was ours. I climbed down from the tree to join my friends. Anathea stood up wordlessly, and Guppy sat on the grass where he fought, his axe across his knees, panting. OV approached him with a flask of ale, and the orc, with a gratuitous nod, took a swig. So did I, we all did, passing the flask around each drinking in turn, then we set up camp right there. My companions are elated with the thrill of overcoming a challenging battle, complimenting each other for their respective deeds. But I am concerned, dear journal, if not anxious. Plants are not supposed to be evil or corrupted. Whatever power possessed this vine and made it so was twisted and dangerous. And now, it knew we were coming, and it had a measure of our strength.